Organize Your Life in Silence, 15 Habits That Actually Work, published by Timeless Audiobook. Introduction. A quiet life, well organized, holds more power than a loud life filled with scattered effort. Real change rarely announces itself. It builds slowly, privately, and without applause. While the world celebrates noise, attention, and constant expression, true control is developed in silence, where discipline is practiced and habits are formed without the need to be seen. There is a hidden cost to living without structure. Days blur together, intentions fade, and energy is wasted on things that don't matter. Not because of a lack of ambition, but because of a lack of organization. When your life is disorganized, even your best efforts feel heavy. But when your life is structured, even small actions create powerful momentum. Organization is not about perfection, it is about clarity. It is about knowing what matters, removing what doesn't, and aligning your actions with your priorities, quietly, consistently, and without distraction. In this audiobook, we will explore 15 practical habits that will help you organize your life from the inside out. Not through complicated systems or temporary motivation, but through simple, repeatable actions that build stability, focus, and control over time. Each habit is designed to bring order to your thoughts, your environment, your decisions, and your daily behavior without the need for constant explanation or external validation. This is not about becoming busy, it is about becoming deliberate. It is not about doing more, it is about doing what matters and doing it well, without noise. As you move through each chapter, you will begin to notice a shift, not just in how you manage your life, but in how you experience it. A well-organized life does not need to prove itself. It shows in your calm, your focus, and your results. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Stop performing your life. Start living it. There is a subtle habit that quietly drains your energy, delays your progress, and keeps you stuck without you even realizing it. It's the habit of performing your life instead of living it. You begin to talk about what you're going to do before you've done it. You share plans, ideas, and intentions, not because they are ready, but because you want to be seen as someone who is improving. And in that moment, something dangerous happens. You replace real action with the feeling of action. It feels like progress, but it isn't. When you announce your goals too early, your mind receives a sense of completion without the work being done. You get validation before effort, approval before discipline, and slowly you train yourself to chase the feeling of being perceived as productive instead of actually becoming productive. This is how many people stay busy but never move forward. They talk, they plan, they imagine, but they don't execute consistently in private. Their life becomes a performance, and performances are exhausting because they depend on an audience. Living your life, on the other hand, requires no audience. It requires honesty. It requires you to sit with your goals quietly and ask yourself a simple question: am I doing the work, or am I just talking about it? Because the truth is, the more you talk, the less you tend to do. Not always, but often enough to notice a pattern. Words feel like progress, but results are built through repetition, not recognition. There is a different kind of power that comes when you stop announcing everything. You begin to move differently. You act without needing to explain. You make decisions without seeking approval. You start something, and instead of telling people about it, you let it grow in silence. This builds a kind of confidence that is not dependent on anyone else. It is quiet, stable, and deeply rooted in action. You trust yourself more because you are proving something to yourself, not to the world. This doesn't mean you never share anything. It means you become intentional about when and why you speak. You don't speak to impress. You don't speak to gain validation. You speak when there is something real to show or something meaningful to say. Until then, you work quietly, consistently, without distraction. This shift alone can change the entire direction of your life because it removes pressure and replaces it with focus. Think about how much energy is wasted trying to maintain an image. keeping up appearances, responding to opinions, explaining your choices. It all takes time and attention. When you stop performing, you reclaim that energy. You no longer feel the need to update everyone on your progress. You no longer feel the urge to prove that you are doing something valuable. Instead, you simply do the work. And over time, that work becomes visible without you needing to say a word. There is also a deeper level to this. When you stop performing, you begin to understand yourself more clearly. Without the noise of external feedback, you start to notice what truly matters to you. You realize which goals are yours and which ones were shaped by other people's expectations. You become more honest about your strengths and your weaknesses. This kind of clarity is only possible in silence because noise distorts perception. At first, this may feel uncomfortable. You might feel the urge to share, to explain, to be seen. That urge is normal. It comes from years of conditioning in a world where attention is often mistaken for value. But if you can resist that urge, even slightly, you will begin to experience a new kind of freedom. You will realize that you don't need to be seen to be progressing. You don't need approval to move forward. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. Start small. Choose one area of your life where you will stop talking and start doing. It could be your health, your work, your habits, or your personal growth. Make a quiet decision. Set a simple plan, and then execute it without announcing it. Let your actions become your focus, not your words. Over time, this practice will build momentum. You will feel more grounded, more focused, and more in control. A well-organized life is not loud. It is not constantly displayed or explained. It is lived, quietly, consistently, and with intention. When you stop performing your life, you finally create space to truly live it. And that is where real progress begins. Chapter 2. Remove what doesn't belong. Ruthlessly. Clarity is not created by adding more to your life. It is created by removing what shouldn't be there in the first place. Yet most people try to improve their lives by stacking new habits, new goals, and new commitments on top of an already overloaded system. They believe more effort will fix the problem, when in reality, the real solution is less but better. If your life feels heavy, cluttered, or constantly overwhelming, it is not a sign that you need to do more. It is a sign that you need to remove what doesn't belong. Everything in your life carries a cost. Every commitment takes time. Every distraction takes focus. Every unnecessary possession takes space, not just physically, but mentally. When you surround yourself with too many things, too many obligations, and too many directions, your attention becomes divided, and when your attention is divided, your progress slows down. You begin to feel busy but not effective, active but not aligned. This is the hidden weight of excess. Removing what doesn't belong requires honesty. You have to look at your life without excuses and ask yourself difficult questions. Why am I holding on to this? Does this actually serve me, or am I keeping it out of habit, comfort, or fear? Sometimes what you need to remove is obvious: physical clutter, unused items, unnecessary distractions. But often, the deeper problem lies in less visible areas: commitments you no longer believe in, relationships that drain your energy, habits that no longer align with who you want to become. Let's start with your environment. Your physical space influences your mental state more than you realize. A cluttered space sends a constant signal to your mind that things are unfinished, disorganized, and out of control. Even if you try to ignore it, it quietly drains your focus. When your space is clear, your thinking becomes clearer. You don't need a perfect environment, but you do need a controlled one. Remove what you don't use. Keep only what supports your daily life. Let your space reflect simplicity and intention, not accumulation. Then there is your time. Many people fill their days with activities that feel necessary but are not truly important. They say yes too quickly, take on more than they can handle, and end up spreading themselves too thin. The result is predictable. They start many things but finish very little. If you want to organize your life, you must protect your time with discipline. This means saying no more often, not aggressively, not rudely, but clearly. Every time you say yes to something unnecessary, you are saying no to something meaningful. Your mental space matters just as much. What you consume daily, information, opinions, content, shapes how you think and feel. If your mind is constantly filled with noise, it becomes difficult to focus on what truly matters. You may feel informed, but not effective. You may feel engaged, but not productive. Removing what doesn't belong in this area means being selective about what you allow into your mind. Not everything deserves your attention. Not every opinion deserves your consideration. Learn to filter. Learn to disconnect when necessary. Silence is not emptiness, it is space for clarity. There is also the emotional side of removal. Some things stay in your life not because they are useful, but because they are familiar. Old habits, outdated goals, even certain relationships, these can become part of your identity, even when they no longer serve you. Letting go can feel uncomfortable because it creates uncertainty. But growth always requires a level of discomfort. You cannot create a new version of your life while holding on to everything from the old one. At some point, you have to decide what stays and what goes. Being ruthless does not mean being careless. It means being intentional. You are not removing things out of frustration, but out of clarity. You are choosing to keep only what aligns with the life you want to build. This requires discipline because there will always be something trying to enter your time, your space, or your attention. If you are not careful, your life will slowly fill up again with things that don't matter. Start small, but start decisively. Choose one area, your room, your schedule, your digital space, and begin removing what is unnecessary. Don't overthink it. If it doesn't serve a clear purpose, let it go. You don't need to justify every decision. You don't need permission. This is your life, and you are allowed to shape it in a way that supports your growth. As you remove more, something interesting begins to happen. You feel lighter, not because everything is perfect, but because everything is clearer. You know what matters. You know where your time goes. You know what deserves your attention, and with that clarity comes control. You are no longer reacting to everything around you. You are directing your life with intention. A well-organized life is not full. It is focused. It is not crowded. It is clear. When you remove what doesn't belong, you make space for what truly does, and that space is where progress begins. Chapter 3. Make your life predictable to yourself. There is a quiet strength in knowing how your day will unfold, not in a rigid, suffocating way, but in a grounded, dependable rhythm that you can trust. When your life is unpredictable to yourself, everything feels harder than it should. You wake up without clarity, you make decisions on the spot, and you rely on how you feel in the moment. Some days go well, others fall apart, and you don't fully understand why. This inconsistency creates a subtle form of stress because you are constantly reacting instead of directing. Making your life predictable to yourself is not about removing freedom. It is about creating stability. It is about becoming someone who knows what they will do, even when they don't feel like doing it. When your actions are predictable, your results become predictable too. And that is where real control begins, not in occasional bursts of motivation, but in steady, repeatable behavior. Think about how much energy you spend deciding what to do each day. Small decisions, repeated over and over, slowly drain your focus. What time should I wake up? When should I start working? What should I work on first? Should I exercise today or skip it? These questions seem minor, but together they create friction. And when there is too much friction, consistency breaks. You delay, you hesitate, you negotiate with yourself. This is how discipline weakens, not through big failures, but through small, repeated indecision. Long imagine removing that friction. You wake up at a set time. You begin your day with a simple, consistent routine. You know what needs to be done, and you begin without overthinking. There is no debate, no delay, just action. This is the power of predictability. It turns effort into habit, and habit into identity. You stop asking yourself whether you should do something because it is already decided. This does not mean your entire day needs to be planned in detail. In fact, too much rigidity can create resistance. The goal is not to control every minute, but to create anchor points, key actions that structure your day. Your morning routine, your work blocks, your time for rest, these become fixed elements that guide everything else. Around them you still have flexibility, but those core habits remain stable regardless of your mood or external circumstances. There is also a deeper psychological benefit to this. When your life is predictable to you, your mind becomes calmer. Uncertainty creates tension, even if you are not fully aware of it. When you don't know what you're going to do, your brain stays in a state of low-level stress, constantly scanning for decisions to make. But when your day has structure, that tension fades. You don't have to think about everything, you just follow the path you've already set. This frees up mental energy for more important tasks. Another important aspect is self-trust. Every time you follow through on a planned action, you reinforce the belief that you can rely on yourself. And over time, this becomes one of the most valuable qualities you can develop. You no longer need external pressure to get things done. You don't depend on motivation or reminders. You simply act, because that's who you are. Predictability builds trust, and trust builds confidence. Of course, there will be days when things don't go as planned. Life is not perfectly controlled, and unexpected situations will arise. But even then, having a predictable structure helps you recover faster. Instead of losing the entire day, you return to your routine as soon as possible. You don't let one disruption turn into a complete breakdown. This resilience comes from having a system, not from relying on willpower. To begin, you don't need a complex plan. Start with a few simple decisions. Choose a consistent wake-up time. Define a short morning routine that you can follow every day. Decide when you will focus on your most important work. These small anchors create a foundation. As they become stable, you can build around them, gradually shaping a day that works for you. Avoid the temptation to constantly change your routine. Many people start strong, then adjust too often, searching for a perfect system. But perfection is not the goal. Consistency is. A simple routine followed daily is far more powerful than a perfect routine that is never sustained. Give your structure time to settle. Let it become part of your life, not something you are always trying to improve. When your life becomes predictable to you, something shifts internally. You feel more in control, not because everything is easy, but because everything is clear. You know what needs to be done, and you do it. There is less hesitation, less confusion, and less wasted energy. You move through your day with purpose, not reaction. A disorganized life feels random. An organized life feels intentional, and that intention begins with predictability, not imposed from the outside, but created by your own choices, repeated until they become who you are. Chapter 4. Build a life that doesn't need motivation. Motivation feels powerful when it appears. It gives you a sudden surge of energy, a clear vision, and the desire to take action immediately. In those moments, everything feels possible. You plan, you commit, and you promise yourself that this time will be different. But the problem with motivation is not how it starts, it's how it disappears. What once felt exciting quickly becomes difficult. The same tasks that felt easy now feel heavy, and without realizing it, you begin to slow down, delay, or stop altogether. This cycle repeats, and over time it creates frustration because you begin to doubt your own consistency. The truth is simple but often ignored. Motivation is unreliable. It is emotional, temporary, and unpredictable. If your life depends on motivation, your progress will always be unstable. Some days you will move forward, and other days you will do nothing. And no matter how strong your intentions are, inconsistency will always limit your results. This is why building a life that doesn't depend on motivation is essential. You don't need to feel ready. You need to be structured. A structured life removes the need for constant emotional energy. Instead of asking yourself, "Do I feel like doing this today?" you replace the question with, "Is this what I do?" That small shift changes everything. When something becomes part of your identity, it no longer requires motivation. You don't wake up and decide whether to brush your teeth, you just do it. The same principle can be applied to your work, your habits, and your priorities. The goal is to turn important actions into non-negotiables. To do this, you must reduce reliance on feelings and increase reliance on systems. A system is simply a set of actions that you follow consistently, regardless of how you feel. It creates a path that you can follow, even on days when your energy is low or your mood is off. Instead of needing inspiration, you need clarity. You need to know what to do, when to do it, and how to begin without hesitation. One of the most effective ways to build this kind of life is to make your actions smaller and more repeatable. Many people fail not because they lack discipline, but because they set expectations that are too high to sustain. They try to change everything at once, and when they can't maintain that intensity, they stop completely. A better approach is to lower the barrier to action. Make your habits simple enough that you can follow them even on your worst days. Consistency matters more than intensity. Another important part of this process is removing friction. The harder it is to start something, the more you will rely on motivation to do it. But if you make your actions easy to begin, you reduce resistance. Prepare in advance. Set up your environment so that it supports your habits. Decide ahead of time what you will do so you don't waste energy thinking about it in the moment. The fewer decisions you have to make, the easier it becomes to act. You also need to accept that not every day will feel productive. There will be days when your mind is tired, your energy is low, and your focus is weak. This is normal. The goal is not to feel perfect every day, it is to show up anyway. Even if your effort is small, it still counts. What matters is that you don't break the pattern, you maintain the rhythm. Over time, these small, consistent actions create momentum that is far more powerful than occasional bursts of motivation. There is a quiet confidence that develops when you no longer depend on how you feel. You begin to trust yourself more, because you know that you will follow through regardless of your mood. You stop waiting for the right moment, because you understand that the right moment is created through action, not emotion. This kind of discipline is not loud or dramatic. It is steady, controlled, and deeply effective. It is also important to let go of the idea that you need to feel inspired to begin. Waiting for motivation is often just another form of delay. You tell yourself that you will start when you feel ready, but that feeling rarely comes when you need it. Action creates clarity, not the other way around. Once you begin, even in a small way, your mind adjusts. Resistance decreases and focus improves. The hardest part is always the start. Long as you build systems and reduce your reliance on motivation, your life becomes more stable. You are no longer controlled by emotional highs and lows. You operate from a place of intention, not impulse. This stability allows you to make steady progress without burning out or losing direction. You don't need to push yourself constantly because your structure carries you forward. A well-organized life does not depend on how you feel each day. It depends on what you have decided to do and your willingness to follow through. Motivation may come and go, but your actions remain. And when your actions are consistent, your results become inevitable. Chapter 5. Protect your mornings from the world. The way your day begins quietly determines how your day unfolds. Before the noise, before the demands, before the world starts pulling at your attention, there is a small window of time that belongs entirely to you. Most people give that time away without thinking. They reach for their phone, open messages, scroll through updates, and immediately step into a reactive state. Within minutes, their mind is no longer their own. It is occupied by other people's priorities, opinions, and urgency. And from that moment on, the day feels scattered. Protecting your morning is not about waking up early for the sake of it. It is about waking up with intention. It is about creating a boundary between you and the outside world, even if only for a short period of time. When you begin your day in silence, without input, you give your mind the space to settle. You are not reacting, you are preparing. And that difference shapes everything that follows. There is a certain calm that exists in the early part of the day. It is not loud or dramatic, but it is powerful. When you sit with it even briefly, you begin to notice your thoughts more clearly. You feel less rushed, less pressured. You are not yet pulled into responsibilities or distractions. This is the ideal moment to center yourself, to decide how you will move through the day, and to start from a place of control rather than reaction. Most people underestimate how damaging it is to start the day with immediate input. The moment you check your phone, you invite the world into your mind. Messages create urgency. Social media creates comparison. News creates tension. Even if you think you are just checking quickly, your mental state has already shifted. Instead of being focused, you become fragmented. Instead of being calm, you become reactive. And once that state is established, it is difficult to reverse. Protecting your morning means delaying that input. It means giving yourself time before you engage with anything external. This does not require hours. Even 30 minutes of uninterrupted quiet time can change your entire day. During this time, you are not consuming, you are simply being. You might sit in silence, reflect, move your body, or begin your most important task. The specific activity matters less than the intention behind it. The goal is to start your day on your terms. A simple morning structure can make a significant difference. You wake up at a consistent time. You avoid your phone. You take a few moments to breathe, to think, or to plan. You begin with something that grounds you, something that does not depend on the outside world. This could be as simple as sitting quietly, writing down your priorities, or starting your work without distraction. The key is consistency. When you repeat this process daily, it becomes a foundation for your life. There is also a psychological shift that happens when you protect your mornings. You begin to feel more in control of your time. Instead of being pulled into the day, you step into it deliberately. This builds confidence because you are no longer starting from a position of reaction. You are leading your day, not chasing it. And when you lead your day, even small actions feel more purposeful. Of course, this requires discipline. The habit of checking your phone immediately is deeply ingrained for many people. It feels natural, even necessary. But if you can resist that impulse even slightly, you will begin to notice a difference. The first few days may feel uncomfortable. You may feel the urge to check, to see what you're missing. But over time, that urge weakens, and in its place, a sense of calm begins to grow. It is important to understand that protecting your morning is not about perfection. Some days will be interrupted. Some mornings will not go as planned. That is normal. The goal is not to create a rigid routine that never changes, but to create a habit of intentional beginnings. Even if you only protect part of your morning, it still has value. What matters is that you are making a conscious effort to start your day differently. As this habit becomes part of your life, you will begin to notice subtle but meaningful changes. Your focus improves. Your thoughts feel clearer. You are less affected by external noise. You move through your day with more stability. And perhaps most importantly, you feel less rushed. Not because you have more time, but because you are using your time more deliberately. A well-organized life begins with a well-directed morning. Before the world has a chance to shape your thoughts, you shape them yourself. Before distractions take over, you establish clarity. This is not about doing more, it is about starting better. And when you start better, everything that follows becomes easier to manage. Protect your mornings, and you protect your mind. And when your mind is clear, your life becomes organized, not by force, but by intention. Chapter 6. Stop explaining your decisions. There is a quiet habit that weakens your confidence without you noticing it, the need to explain yourself. You make a decision, and almost immediately you feel the urge to justify it. You add reasons, extra details, and unnecessary explanations, not because they are required, but because you want others to understand, approve, or agree. Over time, this becomes automatic. You begin to believe that every choice you make needs validation from the outside, and without realizing it, you slowly give away your authority. Explaining your decisions is not always wrong. There are moments where clarity is necessary, especially in professional or collaborative situations. But most of the time, the explanations you give are not about clarity, they are about insecurity. They come from a subtle fear of being judged, misunderstood, or rejected. So you try to control how others perceive you by over-explaining your choices. The problem is, the more you do this, the more you train yourself to depend on approval. When your life is organized, your decisions become clearer, and when your decisions are clear, they do not need constant explanation. You know why you are doing something, and that is enough. This is where quiet confidence begins, not in proving yourself, but in trusting yourself. You don't need to convince everyone. You don't need to defend every action. You simply choose, and you move forward. There is a difference between communication and justification. Communication is direct, simple, and purposeful. Justification is layered, emotional, and often unnecessary. When you explain too much, you dilute your message. You create room for doubt, both in yourself and in others. A clear decision, expressed simply, carries more weight than a long explanation filled with uncertainty. Think about how often you say things like, "I can't come because," or "I'm doing this because," followed by a long explanation that wasn't asked for. In many cases, a simple statement would be enough. "I won't be able to make it. I've decided to focus on something else." These are complete sentences. They are respectful, clear, and firm, but they require something many people struggle with: self-assurance. When you stop over-explaining, you may feel uncomfortable at first. You might worry that people will misunderstand you or think negatively about your choices. That discomfort is natural because you are breaking a habit, but over time you begin to notice something important. Most people are not as focused on your decisions as you think, and those who truly respect you will not require constant justification. There is also a deeper benefit to this habit. When you stop explaining everything, you create space for focus. You are no longer spending energy managing perceptions. You are no longer trying to shape how others see you. Instead, you direct that energy inward, toward your work, your habits, and your priorities. This shift may seem small, but it has a powerful effect on how you move through life. Silence in this context is not avoidance. It is strength. It is the ability to make decisions without needing to announce or defend them. It is knowing that your actions will speak over time. When you operate from this place, your life becomes quieter but more effective. You spend less time talking and more time doing, and as your results grow, the need for explanation naturally disappears. This does not mean you ignore feedback or refuse to communicate. It means you become selective. You speak when it adds value, not when it fills insecurity. You explain when it is necessary, not when it is habitual. You learn to distinguish between what needs to be said and what can remain unsaid. There will be moments when people question your decisions. They may not understand your direction, your priorities, or your changes. That is part of growth. Not everyone will see what you see, and not everyone needs to. If your decisions are aligned with your goals and your values, you do not need universal approval. You need consistency. Start practicing this in small ways. The next time you make a decision, notice your instinct to explain. Pause. Ask yourself if the explanation is truly necessary. If it isn't, keep it simple. Over time, this practice will become natural. You will speak less, but with more clarity. You will explain less, but feel more certain. A well-organized life does not rely on constant validation. It is built on clear decisions, followed by consistent action. When you stop explaining everything, you begin to trust yourself more. And when you trust yourself, your life becomes more stable, more focused, and more aligned. You don't need to justify your path to walk it. You only need to choose it and keep moving forward. Chapter 7. Reduce your life to the essential few. Complexity feels productive, but it often hides confusion. When your life is filled with too many goals, too many commitments, and too many directions, it becomes difficult to move forward with clarity. You start many things, but struggle to finish them. Your attention is divided, your energy is scattered, and your progress becomes inconsistent. It's not that you lack ambition, it's that your focus is spread too thin. And when everything feels important, nothing truly is. Reducing your life to the essential few is not about limiting your potential, it is about unlocking it. When you concentrate your time and energy on a small number of meaningful priorities, your ability to execute improves dramatically. You stop jumping between tasks, you stop chasing every opportunity. Instead, you go deeper, you give your full attention to what truly matters, and that depth creates results that scattered effort never can. The difficulty is not in understanding this idea, it is in applying it. Letting go of options feels uncomfortable, There is always the fear of missing out, the thought that you might be leaving something valuable behind. But what most people fail to realize is that trying to do everything comes with a much greater cost. You don't just risk missing out, you guarantee it. Because without focus, even your best efforts become diluted. To simplify your life, you must first define what is essential. This requires honesty. Not everything that feels urgent is important. Not everything that seems valuable deserves your time. You have to look at your goals, your responsibilities, and your habits, and ask a simple but powerful question. If I could only focus on a few things, what would they be? The answer may not be easy, but it will be revealing. Once you identify your essentials, the next step is to protect them. This is where discipline comes in. Every day, you will be presented with distractions, new ideas, and additional commitments. Some will seem appealing, others will feel necessary, but if they do not align with your core priorities, they will only pull you away from what matters most. Saying no becomes a skill, not out of resistance, but out of clarity. There is also a shift that happens when you reduce your focus. Your work becomes more intentional. Instead of rushing through tasks, you engage with them more fully. You notice details. You improve your quality. You begin to take pride in what you are building because you are no longer treating it as just one of many things. You are treating it as something that matters. This shift from quantity to quality is where real growth happens. Another important benefit of simplification is mental clarity. When your mind is not overloaded with too many priorities, it becomes easier to think. You are not constantly switching between different goals or worrying about what you might be neglecting. You have direction, and with direction comes a sense of calm because you know where your energy is going. This does not mean your life becomes empty or limited. In fact, it becomes richer. When you focus on fewer things, you experience them more deeply. Your progress becomes visible. Your efforts feel meaningful. You begin to see the connection between what you do each day and the results you are building over time. This clarity reinforces your commitment, making it easier to stay consistent. It is also important to understand that your essentials may change over time. What matters to you now may not matter in the same way later. That is part of growth. The goal is not to create a fixed list that never evolves, but to regularly evaluate what deserves your focus. As your life changes, your priorities should adjust accordingly, but at any given moment, your attention should remain concentrated, not scattered. Start by choosing a few key areas of your life, your work, your health, your personal growth, and decide what truly matters within each one. Be specific, be realistic, then commit to those priorities fully. Let go of the rest, at least for now. You don't have to eliminate everything permanently, but you do have to reduce the noise. You may feel resistance at first. The habit of doing more is deeply ingrained, but as you begin to simplify, you will notice a shift. Your days feel less rushed. Your decisions become easier, your actions become more focused, and most importantly, your results begin to improve, not because you are doing what matters. A well-organized life is not built on excess, it is built on intention. When you reduce your life to the essential few, you create space for clarity, depth, and meaningful progress. You stop chasing everything and start building something, and that is where true organization begins. Chapter 8. Create personal rules you don't break. Freedom without structure often turns into inconsistency. You tell yourself you will act when the time feels right, when your energy is high, or when your mood supports it. But days pass, conditions change, and your actions become unpredictable. This is not because you lack discipline, but because you have not defined clear standards for yourself. When everything is optional, nothing becomes stable. This is why personal rules matter. They remove uncertainty and replace it with direction. A personal rule is a decision you make once and follow consistently. It is not based on how you feel in the moment. It is not open for daily negotiation. It becomes part of your identity, something you do because that is who you are. These rules are not meant to control you, they are meant to support you. They reduce the need for constant decision-making and create a structure that keeps you moving forward, even when motivation is low. Think about the areas of your life where you struggle the most. It is often where there are no clear rules. You rely on willpower, and when willpower fades, your actions change. For example, you might tell yourself that you will work when you feel focused or exercise when you feel motivated, but those conditions are unstable. Some days they are present and other days they are not. Without a rule, your behavior becomes inconsistent. Now imagine replacing that uncertainty with a simple, clear standard. I start my work at this time. I exercise on these days. I do not check my phone during certain hours. These are not suggestions, they are decisions. And once they are made, you follow them without overthinking. This removes the internal debate that often leads to delay. You no longer ask, should I do this, because the answer is already defined. The power of personal rules lies in their simplicity. They should be clear, realistic, and easy to remember. If your rules are too complex or too demanding, you will struggle to maintain them. The goal is not to create a perfect system, but a consistent one. Start with a few key rules that address your most important areas. As they become part of your routine, you can build on them gradually. There is also an important psychological shift that happens when you follow your own rules. You begin to trust yourself more. Every time you act according to your standards, you reinforce the belief that you are reliable. This builds confidence, not the kind that comes from external praise, but the kind that comes from self-respect. You know that when you decide something, you follow through, and that knowledge changes how you see yourself. Of course, there will be moments when you feel like breaking your rules. You will feel tired, distracted, or unmotivated. In those moments, it is easy to justify exceptions. You tell yourself that skipping once won't matter, and while that may be true in isolation, repeated exceptions weaken the rule. Over time, what was once a standard becomes a suggestion. This is why consistency is so important. The strength of a rule comes from how often it is followed, not how well it is designed. This does not mean you must be rigid or inflexible. Life is unpredictable, and there will be situations where adjustments are necessary. But there is a difference between adapting to genuine circumstances and breaking your rules out of convenience. The key is to remain intentional. If you need to adjust, do it consciously, not impulsively. And once the situation passes, return to your standard without delay. Another benefit of personal rules is that they simplify your life. When your behavior is guided by clear standards, you spend less time thinking about what to do. You reduce decision fatigue. You eliminate unnecessary choices. This frees up mental energy that can be used for more important tasks. Your day becomes more structured, not because it is tightly controlled, but because it is guided by principles you have already decided on. It is also important to choose rules that align with your long-term goals. Your rules should support the life you want to build, not just the life you are currently living. They should push you slightly beyond your comfort zone, but not so far that they become unsustainable. The balance between challenge and consistency is what makes a rule effective. Start by identifying a few areas where you need more structure. Choose 1 or 2 rules that can bring clarity to those areas. Write them down if necessary. Keep them simple. Then begin following them, regardless of how you feel. Over time, these rules will become automatic. They will no longer feel like effort. They will feel like identity. A well-organized life is not built on constant decisions. It is built on clear standards that guide your actions without hesitation. When you create personal rules and follow them consistently, you remove uncertainty from your life. You replace chaos with structure and hesitation with clarity. You don't need more motivation, you need fewer decisions, and the right rules will take care of the rest. Chapter 9. Control your inputs or be controlled by them. Your life is shaped not only by what you do, but by what you allow into your mind every day. Every piece of information you consume, every message, every video, every opinion leaves an impression. Some of these impressions are useful, but many are not. They distract, overwhelm, and slowly pull your attention away from what truly matters. If you are not intentional about your inputs, you will eventually lose control of your focus, and when your focus is lost, your direction follows. The challenge is that input has become constant. At any moment you can access endless information, news, social media, conversations, notifications. There is always something trying to capture your attention, and most of it is designed to keep you engaged, not to help you grow. It rewards reaction, not reflection. It encourages consumption, not creation. Without realizing it, you begin to spend more time absorbing information than acting on it. This creates a subtle imbalance. You feel mentally active, but not productive. You know more, but you do less. You think about ideas, but you don't apply them. Over time, this leads to frustration because your knowledge increases, but your results do not. The problem is not a lack of information, it is a lack of control over what you consume. Controlling your inputs starts with awareness. You have to notice what you are allowing into your mind on a daily basis. What do you read, watch, and listen to? How much of it is intentional and how much of it is automatic? Many people consume content out of habit, not purpose. They reach for their phone without thinking, scroll without direction, and fill their mind with whatever appears next. This lack of intention is what creates noise. Once you become aware, the next step is to filter. Not everything deserves your attention. In fact, most things do not. You have to decide what is worth consuming and what is not. This does not mean you eliminate all input, but you become selective. You choose quality over quantity. You focus on information that supports your goals rather than distracts from them. There is also value in reducing input altogether. Silence is often underestimated, but it is essential for clarity. When your mind is constantly filled with external information, there is no space for your own thoughts. You become reactive, always responding to what you've just seen or heard. But when you create moments of silence, your thinking becomes clearer. You begin to process, reflect, and understand more deeply. This is where real insight comes from, not from constant input, but from quiet reflection. Another important aspect is timing. When you consume information matters just as much as what you consume. If you start your day with input, you immediately place yourself in a reactive state. Your thoughts are influenced before you've had a chance to direct them. This is why protecting your mornings is so important. By delaying input, you give yourself time to establish clarity before engaging with the outside world. It is also helpful to set boundaries. Decide when and how you will consume information. For example, you might limit your time on certain platforms or choose specific periods during the day for input. Outside of those times, you focus on your work, your priorities, and your own thinking. These boundaries create structure, and structure protects your attention. There is a deeper reason why this matters. Your inputs shape your perception. What you see and hear repeatedly influences how you think, what you believe, and how you act. If your inputs are negative, scattered, or distracting, your mindset will reflect that. But if your inputs are focused, intentional, and aligned with your goals, your thinking becomes more structured. This alignment between input and intention is what creates progress. Of course, it is not realistic to control every input. Life is unpredictable, and you will always encounter unexpected information. But the goal is not perfection, it is direction. You reduce unnecessary noise and increase meaningful input. You create more space for action and less for distraction. As you begin to control your inputs, you will notice a shift in your focus. Your mind feels less crowded. You are able to concentrate for longer periods. Your thoughts become more organized, and perhaps most importantly, you feel more in control of your attention. You are no longer pulled in every direction. You are choosing where to focus. A well-organized life requires a well-managed mind, and a well-managed mind depends on what you allow into it. When you take control of your inputs, you take control of your direction. You stop reacting to everything around you and start acting with intention. Because in the end, if you don't choose what enters your mind, something else will, and it will shape your life whether you realize it or not. Chapter 10. Organize your energy, not just your time. Time is often treated as the most important resource in life, but time alone does not determine your effectiveness. You can have hours available and still accomplish very little if your energy is low, scattered, or misdirected. On the other hand, even a short period of focused, high-energy effort can produce meaningful results. This is why organizing your life is not just about managing time, it is about managing energy. When your energy is aligned, your actions become sharper, your focus becomes deeper, and your progress becomes more consistent. Many people plan their days based on the clock, but ignore how they actually feel during those hours. They assign important tasks to times when their energy is naturally low and then struggle to perform. When it doesn't go well, they blame themselves for a lack of discipline. But often the issue is not discipline, it is misalignment. You are trying to do high-quality work when your mind and body are not prepared for it. To organize your energy, you first need to understand it. Pay attention to when you feel most alert, most focused, and most capable. For some, this is early in the morning. For others, it comes later in the day. There is no universal schedule that works for everyone. What matters is that you observe your own patterns. Notice when your thinking is clear, when your motivation is steady, and when your energy begins to drop. These patterns are not random, they are signals that can guide how you structure your day. Once you become aware of your energy cycles, you can begin to align your tasks accordingly. High-focus work should be done during your peak energy periods. This is when your mind is sharp, your attention is strong, and your ability to think deeply is at its best. Instead of wasting this time on distractions or low-value tasks, you use it for what matters most. This is where your most important progress happens. Lower energy periods still have value, but they should be used differently. These are the times for simpler tasks, things that require less mental effort, such as organizing, responding, or maintaining. By matching the difficulty of your tasks to your energy level, you reduce resistance. You stop forcing yourself to perform at a level that doesn't match your current state, and instead, you work with your natural rhythm. Rest is also a critical part of energy management. Many people treat rest as something optional, something to be earned after work is done. But without proper rest, your energy declines and everything becomes harder. Your focus weakens, your patience decreases, and your efficiency drops. Over time, this leads to burnout, not because you are working too much, but because you are not recovering properly. Rest does not always mean stopping completely. It can be as simple as stepping away from your work, taking a short break, or changing your activity. The key is to give your mind and body time to reset. When you return, your energy is renewed and your ability to focus improves. This cycle of effort and recovery is what sustains long-term productivity. Another important aspect of energy is what you expose yourself to throughout the day. Your environment, your interactions, and your habits all influence how you feel. Certain activities drain your energy while others restore it. If you are constantly engaging in things that exhaust you, whether it's unnecessary conversations, excessive screen time, or unstructured work, your energy will decline. Even if you have enough time to organize your energy effectively, you need to be selective. Identify what drains you and reduce it where possible. At the same time, identify what supports your energy, activities that help you feel focused, calm, and clear. These might include quiet time, movement, or simply working without interruption. The goal is to create an environment that supports your energy rather than constantly pulling it away. There is also a connection between energy and attention. When your energy is low, your attention becomes scattered. You are more easily distracted, less able to concentrate, and more likely to avoid difficult tasks. But when your energy is high, your attention becomes sharper. You are able to focus for longer periods, think more clearly, and execute more effectively. This is why managing your energy is so important. It directly affects your ability to use your time well. As you begin to organize your energy, your days start to feel different. You are no longer forcing yourself through tasks at the wrong time. You are working with your natural rhythm. Your efforts feel more effective, and your results begin to reflect that. You may not be working more hours, but you are using your time more wisely. A well-organized life is not just about filling your schedule. It is about aligning your actions with your capacity. When you manage your energy, you bring structure to your effort. You reduce friction, increase focus, and create a steady flow of progress. Time gives you the opportunity to act, but energy determines how well you use it. And when both are aligned, your life becomes not only more productive, but more balanced, more sustainable, and more under your control. Chapter 11. Train yourself to be alone without distraction. There is a difference between being alone and being comfortable in solitude. Many people spend time by themselves, but very few truly experience silence. The moment they are alone, they reach for something: music, videos, messages, anything to fill the space. It feels natural, almost automatic. But this constant need for stimulation reveals something deeper, an inability to sit with one's own thoughts. And without that ability, it becomes difficult to develop clarity, discipline, and control. Being alone without distraction is not just a preference, it is a skill, and like any skill, it must be practiced. When your mind is constantly occupied, it never has the chance to slow down. It jumps from one piece of information to another, never settling, never reflecting. Over time, this creates a habit of mental noise. You may feel engaged, but you are not truly thinking. You are reacting, consuming, and moving without direction. Learning to sit in silence changes this. At first, it may feel uncomfortable. Without distractions, your thoughts become more noticeable. You may feel restless, bored, or even uneasy. This is not a sign that something is wrong. It is a sign that your mind is not used to stillness. You have trained it to expect constant input, and now, in the absence of that input, it doesn't know how to respond. But if you stay with it, if you allow that discomfort to exist without escaping it, something begins to shift. Your thoughts start to settle. The noise begins to fade. What once felt overwhelming becomes clearer. You begin to notice patterns, how you think, what you focus on, what concerns you. This awareness is valuable because it gives you insight into your own mind. Without it, you are simply moving through life without understanding yourself. There is also a strong connection between solitude and discipline. When you are alone without distraction, you are faced with a choice: do something meaningful or do nothing. There is no external pressure, no immediate reward, no audience. It is just you and your decision. This is where discipline is built, not in moments of excitement, but in moments of quiet choice. When you choose to act in silence, you strengthen your ability to follow through, even when no one is watching. Another important benefit of solitude is focus. When your mind is not constantly switching between different inputs, it becomes easier to concentrate. You are able to stay with a task longer, think more deeply, and produce higher quality work. Distraction weakens attention, but silence strengthens it. The more comfortable you become with being alone, the more control you gain over your focus. It is important to understand that this does not mean isolating yourself from the world. Interaction, connection, and communication are all necessary, but there should be balance. If every moment of your day is filled with external input, you leave no space for internal clarity. Solitude is not about withdrawal, it is about resetting your mind so that you can engage more effectively when needed. To begin practicing this, you don't need long periods of silence. Start with small moments. Set aside a short time each day where you are alone without any form of distraction. No phone, no music, no external input. Just sit, walk, or think. Let your mind settle naturally. You don't need to force anything. The goal is not to achieve a specific state, but to become comfortable with stillness. As this practice becomes more familiar, you can extend it. You may begin to enjoy these moments, not because they are exciting, but because they are clear. You are no longer pulled in multiple directions. You are simply present. And in that presence, your thoughts become more organized, your decisions become more intentional, and your actions become more aligned. There is also a quiet confidence that develops when you are comfortable being alone. You no longer depend on constant interaction or stimulation. You are able to think for yourself, make decisions independently, and move forward without needing external input at every step. This independence strengthens your sense of control over your life. In a world that constantly demands your attention, choosing silence is a powerful act. It allows you to step back, to reset, and to regain clarity. It reminds you that you do not need constant input to function effectively. In fact, you function better without it. A well-organized life requires a well-organized mind, and a well-organized mind needs space to think, to reflect, and to settle. When you train yourself to be alone without distraction, you create that space. And in that space, you begin to understand yourself more clearly, act more intentionally, and live with greater control. Chapter 12. Measure your life without obsession. What gets measured often improves, but what gets over-measured becomes a source of pressure. Many people either avoid tracking their progress completely or become so focused on numbers that they lose sight of what truly matters. They check constantly, compare endlessly, and attach their sense of worth to every small result. This creates a cycle of stress, where progress no longer feels meaningful, it feels monitored. The goal is not to ignore measurement, but to use it wisely without turning it into a burden. When you don't measure anything, your life becomes vague. You rely on feelings instead of facts. You think you are making progress, but you are not entirely sure. Days pass, weeks pass, and you have no clear understanding of what has improved and what has not. This lack of awareness leads to stagnation because you cannot adjust what you cannot see. Measurement, when used correctly, brings clarity. It shows you where you are and whether your actions are leading you in the right direction, but clarity should not come at the cost of peace. When you measure too much, you shift your focus from the process to the outcome. Instead of doing the work, you start checking the results repeatedly. You look for immediate feedback, and when it doesn't match your expectations, frustration builds. This is where obsession begins, not in the act of measuring, but in the need to constantly evaluate. The key is to measure what matters, and to do it with intention. You don't need to track everything. In fact, trying to track too many things creates confusion. Instead, focus on a few key areas that reflect your priorities. These might be your habits, your time, or your progress towards specific goals. Keep it simple. The purpose of measurement is to guide you, not to control you. Another important aspect is frequency. You don't need to check your progress every hour or even every day in detail. In many cases, a daily awareness and a weekly reflection are enough. This gives you enough information to stay on track without becoming distracted by constant evaluation. It allows you to see patterns over time rather than reacting to small fluctuations. It is also important to separate your identity from your results. Numbers can inform you, but they do not define you. If you attach your self-worth to every measurement, you create unnecessary pressure. A single bad day or a slow period can feel like failure, even when you are making progress overall. Instead, view measurement as feedback. It tells you what is working and what is not, but it does not determine your value. There is a quiet discipline in measuring without obsession. You check your progress calmly without emotional reaction. You make adjustments where needed, and then you return to your work. You do not dwell on the numbers. You do not overanalyze every detail. You simply use the information to guide your next step. This balanced approach allows you to stay focused on the process, which is where real progress happens. Another benefit of mindful measurement is accountability. When you track your actions, you become more aware of how you spend your time and energy. You can see patterns that might otherwise go unnoticed. You may realize that certain habits are not as consistent as you thought, or that your time is being used in ways that do not align with your priorities. This awareness allows you to make better decisions, not based on assumption, but on evidence. At the same time, you must avoid turning measurement into pressure. If tracking starts to feel stressful or overwhelming, it loses its value. The purpose is to support you, not to burden you. If needed, simplify your approach. Focus on fewer metrics. Reduce how often you check. The goal is to maintain clarity without creating tension. It is also helpful to remember that progress is not always linear. There will be fluctuations. Some days will be more productive than others. Some periods will feel slower. This is normal. When you measure with a long-term perspective, these variations become less significant. You begin to see trends instead of isolated moments, and those trends give you a more accurate picture of your growth. As you develop this habit, you will notice a shift in how you relate to your progress. You become more objective, less reactive. You trust the process more because you can see the results over time. You no longer need constant reassurance because you have evidence of your effort. This creates a sense of stability where you are guided by clarity rather than emotion. A well-organized life is not one that is constantly evaluated, but one that is quietly understood. When you measure your life without obsession, you create a balance between awareness and peace. You know where you stand, but you are not controlled by it. You adjust when necessary, and then you continue moving forward, because in the end, measurement is a tool, not a destination. It helps you see your path, but it is your actions that move you along it. Chapter 13. Move without seeking recognition. There is a quiet trap that slows down more people than lack of talent ever does: the need to be seen. Not just to be seen eventually, but to be seen constantly. You begin something, and almost immediately you feel the urge to share it. You want acknowledgement, encouragement, and proof that what you are doing matters. And while this desire is natural, it comes with a cost. The more you depend on recognition, the less you focus on the work itself. Recognition feels rewarding because it provides immediate feedback. It tells you that you are on the right path, that others notice your effort, that your actions have value. But this kind of validation is external, and external validation is unstable. It comes and goes depending on people, timing, and attention. If your progress depends on it, your consistency will always be affected by it. Some days you will feel motivated because you are noticed. Other days, when no one is watching, your effort will weaken. Moving without seeking recognition changes this dynamic completely. It shifts your focus from being seen to becoming better. Instead of asking, "Who will notice this?" you begin to ask, "Is this moving me forward?" That shift removes unnecessary pressure. You no longer feel the need to prove your progress in real time. You allow your work to develop quietly, without interruption. There is a deeper advantage to this approach. When you are not focused on recognition, your attention stays on the process. You are more present in what you are doing. You are less distracted by how it looks, and more concerned with how well it is done. This leads to better quality, deeper understanding, and stronger results over time. Your work improves not because you are trying to impress, but because you are trying to grow. Seeking recognition also creates a subtle form of comparison. When you share your progress, you inevitably become aware of how others are doing. You measure yourself against their pace, their results, their visibility. This comparison can lead to doubt, impatience, or unnecessary pressure. But when you move in silence, you remove that influence. You are no longer reacting to other people's timelines. You are following your own. This does not mean recognition is meaningless. When it comes naturally, as a result of consistent effort, it can be encouraging. But the key difference is that it is not your goal. It is a byproduct. You are not working for attention. You are working for progress. And when progress is real, recognition will follow, whether you seek it or not. There is also a sense of freedom in not needing to be seen. You are no longer managing how your actions appear to others. You are not adjusting your behavior to fit expectations or to gain approval. You are simply doing what needs to be done. This freedom allows you to focus more deeply and act more honestly. Your decisions become clearer because they are not influenced by the need to impress. At first, this way of operating may feel unfamiliar. You might feel like your efforts are going unnoticed, or that your progress is invisible. But that invisibility is not a disadvantage, it is an advantage. It gives you space to work without pressure. It allows you to make mistakes, adjust, and improve without constant observation. In that space, real growth happens. Over time, something important begins to change. You start to find satisfaction in the work itself, not in the response it generates. You complete tasks because they matter to you, not because they will be seen. This internal satisfaction is more stable than any external recognition. It keeps you consistent, even when no one is watching. There is also a long-term benefit to this approach. When you focus on the work instead of the attention, your results become stronger, and strong results speak for themselves. You do not need to announce them. They become visible naturally through what you produce and how you live. At that point, recognition is no longer something you chase, it is something that finds you. Start practicing this by reducing how much you share. Not completely, but intentionally. Allow some of your progress to remain private. Focus on completing tasks without announcing them. Let your actions exist without immediate acknowledgement. At first, it may feel like something is missing, but over time, you will begin to appreciate the quiet. A well-organized life is not built for display, it is built for function. When you move without seeking recognition, you remove distraction, reduce pressure, and increase focus. You become more consistent, more grounded, and more aligned with your goals. Because in the end, it is not what people see that matters most. It is what you build when no one is looking. Chapter 14. Reset your life regularly. Life does not fall apart all at once. It drifts. Slowly, quietly, and often without notice. A few missed habits here, a little disorganization there, a shift in focus, a drop in discipline, and over time, what once felt structured begins to feel scattered. You don't wake up one day in complete chaos. You arrive there gradually, through small neglects that compound. This is why regular resets are essential. not because you are failing, but because you are human. And without intentional resets, disorder will always find a way in. A reset is not a reaction to failure, it is a form of maintenance. Just like you would clean your space or organize your work, you must also step back and realign your life. It is a moment where you pause, observe, and adjust. You look at what is working, what is not, and what needs to change. This process keeps your life from drifting too far away from your intentions. Many people avoid this because it requires honesty. It is easier to continue moving forward without questioning your direction. But movement without reflection leads to misalignment. You can be busy, productive, and still moving in the wrong direction. A reset brings you back. It reconnects your actions with your priorities. There are different levels of reset. Some are small and frequent, others are deeper and less frequent. A daily reset might be as simple as reflecting on your day, what you did, what you avoided, what you can improve tomorrow. This doesn't need to be complicated. A few quiet minutes of honest thought can be enough. It creates awareness, and awareness is the first step to correction. A weekly reset goes a bit deeper. It is a time to step back from your routine and evaluate your overall direction. Are you focusing on what truly matters? Are your habits supporting your goals? Is your time being used intentionally? During this time, you can adjust your schedule, refine your priorities, and remove anything that has started to drift out of alignment. This keeps your life structured without allowing small issues to grow into larger ones. Then there are larger resets, moments where you take a broader look at your life. These might happen monthly or at certain points throughout the year. You reflect on your progress, your direction, and your overall structure. You ask yourself if the path you are on still makes sense. If not, you adjust, you simplify, you remove what no longer belongs. These resets are more significant, but they are built on the same principle, clarity through reflection. One of the most important parts of resetting is letting go. Over time, things accumulate. Tasks, commitments, habits, even thoughts. Not all of them remain useful. Some become outdated, unnecessary, or even harmful to your progress. A reset gives you the opportunity to release them. Not everything you start needs to continue. Not everything you once valued needs to remain. There is also a mental aspect to resetting. Your mind collects experiences, thoughts, and emotions throughout the day. Without time to process them, they begin to build up, creating noise. A reset allows you to clear that noise. You reflect, you understand, and you let go of what is no longer needed. This creates space for clearer thinking and better decisions. Another important benefit of resetting is that it prevents extremes. Without regular reflection, people tend to swing between two states, either fully disciplined or completely off track. They push hard for a period of time, then lose control, then try to start again from the beginning. This cycle is exhausting and unnecessary. Regular resets create balance. Instead of starting over, you adjust. You stay on course, even if your pace changes. It is important to approach resets with a calm mindset. This is not a time for harsh judgment or frustration. It is a time for observation and adjustment. You are not criticizing yourself, you are guiding yourself. The goal is not perfection, but alignment. You are simply making sure that your actions match your intentions. To make this a habit, you need to schedule it. Don't wait for things to feel out of control before you reflect. Build regular resets into your routine. Even a few minutes at the end of each day and a longer session once a week can make a significant difference. These small moments of reflection keep your life organized, even as circumstances change. As you practice this, you will begin to notice a shift. You feel more in control, not because everything is perfect, but because you are aware. You catch problems early, you adjust quickly, you no longer drift for long periods without direction. Your life becomes more stable, more intentional, and more aligned with what matters. A well-organized life is not one that never goes off track. It is one that returns quickly. When you reset regularly, you don't need to start over. You simply realign and continue, and that ability to pause, reflect, and adjust is what keeps your life moving forward, quietly and consistently. Chapter 15. Become the most reliable person you know. At the foundation of an organized life lies one quality that quietly determines everything else: reliability. Not how others see you, but how you see yourself. Can you trust your own decisions? Can you depend on your own actions? When you say you will do something, do you follow through? These questions may seem simple, but the answers shape your entire life, because without self-reliability, even the best plans lose their strength. Many people set goals with good intentions, but struggle to stay consistent. They start strong, then slowly drift, not because they don't care, but because they haven't built trust with themselves. Each time you delay, avoid, or abandon something you said you would do, you send a message to yourself, a quiet message that says, "I don't always follow through." Over time, this weakens your confidence. You begin to doubt your own commitments, and that doubt makes action even harder. Becoming reliable starts with small promises, not the big, dramatic commitments that feel exciting in the moment, but the simple, daily actions that shape your life. Waking up when you said you would, starting your work on time, completing what you planned. These actions may seem minor, but they are the building blocks of trust. Every time you follow through, you strengthen your belief in yourself. There is a difference between wanting to do something and deciding to do it. Wanting depends on emotion, deciding depends on intention. When you become reliable, you operate from decisions, not feelings. You don't wait to feel ready, you act because you said you would. This removes uncertainty. Your actions become predictable, not forced, but consistent. One of the reasons people struggle with reliability is that they make promises that are too large or too vague. They aim for perfection, set high expectations, and then feel overwhelmed. When they can't meet those expectations, they stop completely. This pattern creates frustration because it feels like failure even when the intention was good. A better approach is to lower the barrier and increase consistency. Make promises you can realistically keep. Start with actions that are small enough to follow through on, even when your energy is low. As you build consistency, you can gradually increase the level of challenge. This way you are not relying on motivation, you are building trust step by step. There will be days when you don't feel like following through. Days when your energy is low, your focus is weak, or your mind is distracted. These are the moments that matter most. Because reliability is not built on your best days, it is built on your average days. When you show up despite resistance, you reinforce your identity, you prove to yourself that you are not controlled by how you feel. It is also important to understand that reliability does not mean perfection. You will make mistakes. You will miss a day, delay a task, or fall short at times. That is part of the process. What matters is how quickly you return. Do you let one mistake turn into many, or do you correct yourself and continue? Reliability is not about never failing, it is about not staying off track. There is a quiet confidence that develops when you become reliable. You no longer need to question whether you will follow through, because you know you will. This confidence is not loud or visible, but it is powerful. It affects how you make decisions, how you approach challenges, and how you handle uncertainty. You trust yourself, and that trust allows you to move forward without hesitation. This reliability also simplifies your life. When you know you will do what you planned, you don't need to constantly rethink your decisions. You don't need to rely on reminders, pressure, or external accountability. Your system becomes internal. You act because it is part of who you are, not because someone is watching. Over time, this becomes your identity. You are no longer someone who tries, starts, or intends. You are someone who follows through. And that identity changes everything. It makes your habits stronger, your structure more stable, and your progress more consistent. To begin, choose a few commitments that matter to you. Keep them simple, define them clearly, then follow through every day without negotiation. Don't add more until these become stable. Let your actions build your confidence. Let your consistency shape your identity. A well-organized life is not built on perfect plans or constant motivation. It is built on trust, the trust that you will do what you said you would do. When you become the most reliable person you know, your life becomes steady, focused, and aligned. Because in the end, the strongest system you can build is not around you, it is within you. Conclusion: a life built in silence carries a different kind of strength. It is not rushed, not scattered, and not dependent on constant validation. It moves with clarity, guided by intention rather than reaction. Throughout this audiobook, you have seen that organizing your life is not about doing more, chasing more, or proving more. It is about removing what doesn't belong, simplifying what remains, and committing to what truly matters, quietly and consistently. Each habit you have explored is simple on its own. None of them require special talent or extreme effort. But together, they create something powerful. They bring structure to your days, clarity to your decisions, and stability to your actions. And over time, this structure becomes your foundation. You no longer rely on motivation to move forward. You rely on systems, on standards, and most importantly, on yourself. There is a shift that happens when you begin to live this way. You stop announcing your intentions and start executing them. You stop filling your life with unnecessary noise and begin to value silence. You stop chasing attention and start focusing on progress. This shift is not dramatic, but it is lasting. It changes how you think, how you act, and how you experience your life. You may not see immediate results, and that is important to understand. A well-organized life is not built overnight. It is built through repetition, through small decisions made daily, through habits that feel ordinary in the moment but become extraordinary over time. This is the nature of quiet progress. It compounds, and when it does, the results become undeniable. There will be moments when you feel tempted to return to old patterns, to seek validation, to overcomplicate, to lose focus. That is part of the process. What matters is not that you never drift, but that you return, you reset, you realign, you continue. This ability to come back to your structure is what keeps your life steady, even when circumstances change. Remember, you do not need to explain your path to anyone. You do not need to show every step, share every plan, or prove your progress in real time. Let your actions speak. Let your results emerge naturally. There is a quiet confidence in knowing that what you are building does not require constant attention to exist. As you move forward, keep things simple. Focus on the essentials. Protect your time, your energy, and your attention. Build routines that support you. Create rules that guide you. Reflect regularly, and most importantly, follow through. Not perfectly, but consistently. A well-organized life is not loud. It does not demand recognition. It shows itself in your calm, your focus, and your ability to move with intention. It shows in the way you handle your days, the way you make your decisions, and the way you carry yourself through challenges. In the end, you will not need to tell anyone that your life is changing. It will be visible in your discipline, in your clarity, and in your results. The noise will fade, but what you build in silence will remain, because a life organized in silence is not just efficient, it is powerful.